Today we look at the shocking murder of Gerry Tobin, known to his friends as Gentleman Gerry, a member of the Hells Angels motorcycle club. At the trial where the men stood trial for his murder, the judge described it as a totally pointless murder, just because Gerry belonged to a different bike club. I'm Adam Lloyd, and today we delve into the murky world of motorcycle clubs. The 4-day Bulldog Bash generated profits of over £1 million for the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club in 2007. The event started as a small gathering in '87, but by the time we pick up the story, the event had grown to one of the largest motorcycle festivals in Europe, with a record 50,000 people attending. It's not hard to see why it was so popular, as it followed the organisers' philosophy of hosting a festival that meets all the criteria of their own perfect party, organised by bikers for bikers. Since its inception, it has followed roughly the same format, providing entertainment aimed at the motorcycle riding fraternity, including live rock music, beer tents, motorcycle racing, drag racing, and stunt riding demonstrations. Lovers of Shakespeare at his nearby birthplace of Stratford-upon-Avon would maybe have been less keen on the adult entertainment, which traditionally was a big part of the event, including the wet t-shirt contest, erotic dance shows, and a topless bike wash. On the other hand, maybe most of the Shakespeare fans would have enjoyed it, because as we all know, how people really enjoy spending their time when nobody they know is around is something that constantly surprises us. On Sunday, the 12th of August 2007, Hells Angels and other motorbike fans were travelling home from the Bulldog Bash. It had been a great event. One of the Hells Angels heading back to South London was Gerry Tobin, known as Gentleman Gerry. The 35-year-old had been born in Macclesfield and emigrated to Canada as a boy. Not fitting the tabloid stereotype of a Hells Angel, Gerry had led Bible studies at his home in Calgary in Canada and even thought of becoming a missionary before returning to England in the 1990s with his fiancée Becky Smith. Gerry was loving life with his fiancée, whilst working as a mechanic at a local Harley-Davidson dealership and spending time with his fellow Hells Angels. Life was good. Gerry was riding home on the M40 motorway at the head of a convoy of 3 bikers. Bringing up the rear of the 3-bike convoy was a man who was keen to join the Hells Angels, but had not yet been accepted into the gang, Pavel Lek. As Pavel rode, he spotted in his mirror a dark green car coming up fast from behind, and he moved into the middle lane to let it pass. As he approached Junction 12 for Leamington Spa, the Green Rover 620 raced past and then slowed down its speed to match the speed of the driver at the front of the pack, Gerry Tobin. Pavel watched in horror as guns appeared out of the passenger windows and shots were fired. As the car sped off, it seemed at first as though Gerry hadn't been affected, but 2 or 3 seconds later, Pavel saw with utter horror that Gerry let go of the handlebars and his body fell under the wheels of Pavel's bike. The first bullet had smashed through the mudguard of Gerry's bike into the rear wheel. One of the bullets skimmed the base of Gerry's helmet, lodging in his skull and killing him instantly. Gerry ended face down on the tarmac near the Central Reservation, whilst his bike carried on for 200 metres before veering off to the grass verge on the left of the road. Tragically, at just 35 years old, Gerry died at the scene on the M40 motorway on that August afternoon. Do you know much about the Hells Angels beyond Harleys, leather jackets, and facial hair? No, me neither. But I found this really great quote. It says this: "We can safely start with saying that if you are interested in joining the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club and you are really on Google to tell you how to do it, then you probably won't be joining anytime soon. The first in the list of Hells Angels membership requirements is to have the right personality. You'll have similar interests and therefore probably also friends in common. People with similar interests usually gravitate." There were so many tributes to Gerry, who was incredibly well liked by his friends. He was a man of his word, a defender of his principles, someone who cared about other people. He was a hard-working and respected motorcycle mechanic who was a loving partner to Rebecca and a trusted friend to many. His membership of the Hells Angels was a natural extension of his passion for motorcycles, motorcycling, and those people who shared his enthusiasm. The investigation to find Gerry's murderer struggled. CCTV captured the Green Rover from which vehicle shots were fired, but who did it belong to? The burnt out Rover was found in a back street in Coventry, and detectives traced it to its owner, Sean Creighton. Now, using his own car for the killing wasn't the only mistake Sean made. He and his accomplices were caught on CCTV cameras at a petrol station, wearing winter clothing in August in an attempt to disguise themselves. It just made them stand out. The same cameras caught Gerry too, who was looking up and smiling without a care in the world, totally unaware that that afternoon he was going to be murdered. So, who was Sean Creighton? The motorbike mechanic was a senior figure in a rival motorcycle club, the Outlaws. Police believe that the shot, which claimed Gerry's life, was the latest chapter in a bitter story of hatred between the Outlaws and the Hells Angels. The shooting, which they thought would have been sanctioned by overseas overlords, would be in retaliation for a previous incident, and it took place on territory which the Outlaws regarded as their own. Many outlaws regarded the location of the Hells Angels' annual Bulldog Bash, Long Marston, near Stratford-upon-Avon, as a deliberately provocative venue chosen to inspire conflict. Long Marston would be considered the territory of the Outlaws, and the South Warwickshire chapter, which was run by Sean Creighton, would see that area as under their control. The rivalry between the two gangs originated in a series of brutal murders in North America in the late 60s, and has since spread to other parts of the world. Since then, there's been tit for tat incidents all over the world, with some activity in Britain. During its attempts to convince Stratford-upon-Avon's licensing authority that the Bulldog Bash posed a danger to public safety, Warwickshire Police detailed a number of incidents in a statement which said the following: in order to appreciate the potentially life threatening risk to members of the public as a result of the Bulldog Bash, it's necessary to understand the history of the motorcycle clubs. In 1998, the Outlaws made a specific threat to bomb the Bulldog Bash. This threat was taken very seriously by both the police and the event organisers. Then on the 12th of August 2001, a Hells Angel member was shot on the M40 as they left the Bulldog Bash, an attack very similar, unfortunately, to that which killed Gerry. This was treated as an attempted murder. The individual was shot 3 times in the leg. But the injured man, following the Hells Angels code of not ever talking to the police, refused to make a formal complaint. The investigation into Gerry's death continued, and they discovered that the plan for the murder had been in place for a number of months. At the South Warwickshire Outlaws Christmas party, in an Art Deco watering hole on the fringes of Coventry, of course it was, the President, Sergeant at Arms, and Treasurer had been among those gathered to plot the death of a rival gang member they callously dismissed as a maggot. Just to be clear, it wasn't Gerry they were targeting, it was just any Hells Angel. The chapter's president, 44-year-old Sean Creighton, who had fired the fatal shot, began target practice on a dummy at his home nearby. 3 days before the murder, the gang began monitoring bikers heading for the Bulldog Bash, looking out for a member of the Hells Angels to target. On the day of the murder, as Gerry rode his Harley Davidson down the motorway, the Green Rover sped up beside him. Its driver manoeuvred into position, and Creighton and another outlaw, Simon Turner, both opened fire. Nearby, so-called dog's body probationers were acting as a backup in a white Range Rover, just in case the initial plan failed, and another gang member was patrolling in a Renault Laguna. Minutes after the murder, the occupants of the Rover ordered their 2 subunits to stand down. They sped back to the Coventry area, and the Rover was set alight in a country lane. So who were the other key men involved in the plot? Dane Garside, the driver of the Rover, had only recently been awarded the black and yellow insignia of the Outlaws, designating him as a fully patched member. A 42-year-old lorry driver and father of seven, he'd wanted to be in an outlaw bikers club since he was 13, and he had the Grim Reaper emblem of another club, Satan's Slaves, tattooed on his head in anticipation of the day when he'd be accepted into the biking fraternity. He also had the word warrior tattooed on his head. Simon Turner, the other gunman, was a mechanic who worked at a motorcycle shop in Coventry that acted as an unofficial clubhouse for the members. His elaborate tattoos stretched all the way down his arms and around his neck, and he was no stranger to violent attacks on strangers. In 1993, he'd been jailed for 10 years for grievous bodily harm, for stabbing and throwing petrol over a man he'd never met before, but who owed money to a friend. Turner, get this, explained his action later by saying that he needed the money to buy his children's Christmas presents. Throwing petrol over the man had been, he said, just a scare tactic. His children must be so proud. At the trial at Birmingham Crown Court, Creighton pleaded guilty to the killing. The evidence against him was so overwhelming, he had little choice, and police suspected this was just his way of trying to keep his chapter of the Outlaws existing. After all, the other members are all in the dock with him. The rest maintained their innocence through the 9-week trial until they were convicted of the murder and related firearms offences. One member of the gang even jeered at Gerry's mum during the hearing. The lack of respect is sickening, isn't it? And in stark contrast to the personality and the character of Gerry Tobin. At sentencing, all seven stood handcuffed in the dock together. Outside the court, 100 fellow outlaws waited in support as armed police officers kept a watchful eye. Creighton was told he'd be locked up for a minimum of 28.5 years, Turner for 30 years, Dane Garside 27 years, and the others got at least 25 years. This was an appalling murder, said the judge. A totally innocent man was executed with a firearm in broad daylight on a busy motorway for no reason other than he belonged to a different motorcycle club than yours. He was a total stranger to you. The utter pointlessness of what you did makes his murder even more shocking. None of you has showed the remotest feeling, consideration, or remorse for what you did. The killing of Gerry is just so sad. He was, by all accounts, a lovely man. For years, Gerry had worn the infamous death's head insignia of a Hell's Angel with fierce pride and unquestioning loyalty. Thousands of bikers across Britain aspire, but only a small number have reached the status of a fully patched member of the Hells Angels. But sadly, Gerry's treasure patch would become his death warrant. Of the judge, when he said it was a utterly pointless murder just because a man belonged to a different motorcycle club. So true and so totally pointless. Until next time.